Member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've got 2 days left of this power-sharing parliament this year. And in those 2 days, we should use it to debate the issues that matter to the Australian people. Not things like what the government has on the agenda for the rest of the day, putting up fees for universities and making costs for students even higher, but debating an issue that this government has tried to skirt for too long, which is the cruelty of live exports. Now, the Australian people are speaking loudly that they want these ships of shame stopped. And we've got an opportunity now in this short window, which is why we should be debating it immediately, to have the strongest expression from both houses of this parliament, from the Senate and now from the House, before Parliament rises for the end of the year, to say this cruel trade must stop. Now, it's no surprise that the government comes in here and says, no, we can find other time to debate it, let's kick it off into the long grass. They are running and hiding, just like they tried to run and hide earlier this sitting from the will of the parliament being expressed to say we want a federal anti-corruption commission. Now they're trying to run and hide from the will of the parliament being expressed to say it is time to move out of live exports of sheep. Now, I am someone who's brought bills to this place over many, many years to say Australia needs to get out of the live export trade, full stop. These shiploads of cruelty must be brought to an end. And I say that also as someone, the member for Petrie was saying he went on a holiday in Western Australia and he was there for a little period of time and that made him have his view. Well, can I say I grew up over 20 years ago living in Fremantle, and you could tell when these ships of death were in town because the stench ran across the whole city. When it was one of those hot days, as it often gets to in Western Australia, when it was one of those hot days in the 30s or 40s, and you had these ships full of sheep parked there waiting to depart, animals were dying before they even left port. And what we also know is that as they travelled across the other side of the world, more and more of them would die because they were in conditions that were being hidden from the people. And now those conditions have been exposed. And they've been exposed and successive governments have told us, oh, it's okay, we can fix it, we've got this standard or we've got that standard or we'll have this review or we'll have that review. But time and time again, what has been made apparent is that you cannot regulate what happens on a ship thousands of kilometres from Australia from behind a desk in Canberra. You just can't do it. And the government has asked us to take on face value, it's okay, we've put in new rules. We've put in new rules to fix it. And they've said, well, no, and they're science-based. Let's have the debate that's based on facts rather than it's based on emotions. Well, what is clear from the facts that the Veterinary Council, the Veterinarians Association, what they tell us is that sheep need at least double the areas that they've been given so far. They need at least double, and they need to be not sent through during these hot summer months in the Northern Hemisphere to have any chance of survival. And what does the government do? Well, the government hears that advice and comes back with rules so weak that they don't even meet that standard, to the point where now, a couple of days ago, the industry body says, oh, we're going to impose a voluntary moratorium. So the government comes in here and talks about taking a big stick in other industries. The stick that they've taken in this industry is so weak that even the industry itself is now standing up and saying, oh, we'll do something stronger than what the government is proposing. And that tells you, when the industry itself says when the industry itself says the government rules are so weak that we're going to do more, that tells you everything you need to know about this government and whose pockets they are in. And they are so intent on propping up a dying industry, an industry that is based on death and that is also itself dying. They are so intent in propping that up that they're prepared to even undercut what the industry itself is saying that they'll do on a voluntary basis. And that is why we need stronger standards and the beginning of the end of this industry. Now, let's talk about jobs. There's talk about jobs that have been raised. Well, can I say this? This government has sold out sheep farmers by giving them false hope and allowing an industry that's based on exploitation and cruelty to continue. And I've met with some of those sheep farmers, and they have said to me, we didn't know that this was happening and the government told us it was all fixed. That's what those sheep farmers have said. And what is crystal clear is that this government has no intention of fixing it. The government will continue to turn a blind eye, and this government can no longer be trusted. And when the government comes back and says, well, here's some new standards, and those standards don't even last a couple of months before the industry says, oh, they're even weaker than ones that we're prepared to impose voluntarily for a short period of time, because the industry knows that this is on its way out, then the government has been found wanting. And what we can do, if we had the wit in this country, is put in place a transition package so that those farmers and those small amount of people that rely on this trade have the capacity to transition out. And if we also, together with that, put in place a package to increase and support processing here, then we are going to create new markets for our meat. And can I say this? When you have the Greens and the Meat Workers Union together on the same page, saying we need a plan to transition out of this industry and instead put in place a jobs-rich future where we are processing our meat here and then sending it offshore, it tells you everything you need to know about where the Australian public is at and where public sentiment is at. And this government is being forced to be dragged, kicking and screaming to where the Australian public is at on so many issues, on an independent commission against corruption, on not bankrolling coal-fired power stations and instead backing renewable energy, and on this as well. And can I say, one of the most prevalent things my office is contacted about is about the cruelty that the Australian government is currently allowing to be perpetrated to animals that are being exported. Sheep, cattle, it is one of those issues that really matters to people, because they know if a government's prepared to allow this to happen to animals who don't have a voice, what are they prepared to do with everyone else? And they know that a litmus test of what we are as a society and how civilised we are as a society is how we treat the voiceless. And the animals are reliant on our protection. They can't speak for themselves, so we have to put in place standards that make sure they are protected. And it's no good, as the government says, to come in here and say, well, I've got pets, you know, I've got a dog, I've got a turtle, as one member said, trust me, we like animals. Well, I bet you wouldn't put your dog on a ship and send it on a voyage for several months without any control over how it was going to be treated. I bet you wouldn't put your dog on a ship together with thousands of others where they can't move, where when they get hot they can't breathe, they don't have space to lie down. You wouldn't do that to your own pet. So we shouldn't be doing it to other animals as well. Right? If you want to run that spurious argument, then take it to its logical conclusion. It is up to this place to set the standards for how we are going to treat the animals that we are responsible for. And if you're right, if the government is right when it comes in here and says, well, no one wants to see cruelty to animals, then the only logical conclusion is to phase out this trade which is based on cruelty, because it is clear now this cannot be regulated from behind a desk in Canberra. It is clear now that this is a trade that is based on misery, and it is clear now that this government is continuing to hold out false hope to the farmers if it continues to say, oh, we can prop this up forever, because this trade no longer has a social licence. So I urge this House to debate this motion immediately and to pass it and to begin to end this trade.